Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we're asking the question, is it worth it to still play X-Wing in 2025? Because isn't it a dead game? I love to hear that expression because it's such a loaded question. We're going to talk about it a little bit, show you communities that are still playing the game, talk about the history of it a little bit, and then also show you some alternatives if you want to kind of recapture some of the magic from playing X-Wing. So whether or not you still want to play X-Wing, maybe you're thinking about getting into it, maybe you used to play and you kind of want to get into it, but maybe you want a little bit of a change, hopefully we can answer some of those questions and point you in some of the right directions. If you guys are new here to the channel, we talk a lot about Star Wars and tabletop gaming. Love to have you stick around. We're doing a $25 Amazon gift card giveaway right now. All you have to do to enter to win that is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. Let me know in the comments some of your favorite tabletop gaming memories, especially if they're from X-Wing or similar games. Love to hear about that because I've had a great time covering X-Wing through the years and playing X-Wing through the years. This was the game that started it all for me. X-Wing was that game. It was watching Will Wheaton play X-Wing on Tabletop on his show, and I went down the rabbit hole and started finding more and more games and trying to get into it, and I fell in love. And over time, it grew into more and more games, and X-Wing has been through a lot. It's been through a lot of editions of X-Wing. So whether or not you played back in the beginning or you jumped in partway through, there have been multiple different starters and editions of X-Wing. We had the original starter, which was a classic under Fantasy Flight Games. We even had the Force Awakens starter box, which was kind of like the dirty little secret we don't want to talk about too much because it really showed a rush to get something manufactured without actually having seen the movie or known any of the named pilots from the movie outside of Poe Dameron, to the second edition under Fantasy Flight Games, and then also a 2.5 edition under Atomic Mass Games, which and outside of the Force Awakens, which did have some some little tweaks and adjustments. There were basically the big three editions were first edition, of which there are still people playing, second edition, of which there are still people playing, and the 2.5 AMG edition, of which there are still people playing. X-Wing had a massive turnout at Adepticon. There are a lot of people still playing these games, so if you are curious if it's worth it to keep playing or not, or to start playing again after a long absence, I would argue that there are a lot of people still playing this game. There is still product available in the wild. Granted, some of it might be older. Some things never did get reprinted, but in the world of 3D printing and community engagement, there are a lot more avenues to play. More on that in just a minute. One of the challenges, though, because there are challenges, that's not a resounding yes, you should absolutely keep playing. There's some things to keep in mind. Because the community has been divided multiple times over the years, and these were big divisive moments. The change from X-Wing First Edition to X-Wing 2.0 was a massive divide for the community. A lot of people did not like the rollout. A lot of people did not like the fact that they had to buy upgrade kits to continue to play with their existing miniatures in the new edition. And I think that was a big lesson learned for Asmodee and for Fantasy Flight at the time. There were a lot of things that were improved upon in second edition, but there were also some missteps along the way. And similarly with the 2.5 edition rollout from Atomic Mass Games, which was a massive change to the way that X-Wing was played. While they didn't want to call it a new edition, that's why they give it a 2.5, there were also massive changes to the way that the game was played, to rolling, how you roll for initiative, to how bumping works, to having scenario play, and to the way points were done, different in all three versions. So there's three very distinct, and each one has kind of fragmented the community a little bit, and such that you still have leftovers that has said, after 2.0, that said, you know what, me and my household and my group, we're still just going to play original X-Wing 1.0. By the way, happens to be my personal favorite of the group, the original 1.0 X-Wing. I know it was flawed, but to me, it hit its gold and it hit its stride before I think the game was sort of oversaturated. When there was fewer ships, I think the ships were a little more meaningful. Like Wave 3, Wave 4. I think the game was at a really magical moment, and yes, it was imperfect. I get it, but it was certainly wonderful. And there were some things that, like turrets being 360 was never a really great fit for X-Wing, but I was able to love it with all of its imperfections. And maybe part of that is because it was my introduction into tabletop gaming, and then other games like Imperial Assault came out, and different board games like Star Wars Rebellion, and then Star Wars Armada came out, which blew my mind, and then Star Wars Legion came out, and like all of these other tabletop games. And then I started getting introduced to other games like into Warhammer, and all these, and more board games and mech games and racing, and all kinds of cool stuff. So there's been a lot of different genres of games that have come after it, but original X-Wing 1.0, that was my personal favorite. That was my jam, right? 2.0, I've enjoyed that one too, but some of the magic was lost a little bit. But it was still a really good game, a really solid game. 2.5 was not a fan. Was not a fan of all of the changes that didn't feel like. But there were still some good things with 2.5. I liked the idea of quick builds, but didn't like the fact that they were also giving you illegal upgrades, and they were kind of like point costed to be like, well, you kind of have to take the quick builds, and how generics were kind of point costed out. And they made huge ships like completely illegal with 2.5. So again, there are sub-communities here of which version to play. But there is also community initiatives that have taken the game farther, and I want to talk about those a little bit in different ways that you can play if you're looking to get into the game, and if you wanted to kind of get into a game that still feels like it's still supported. Because again, Atomic Mass Games, after kind of barely trying a little bit with X-Wing, decided to drop it off. They killed X-Wing and Armada on the same day with a tweet. It was very unceremonious and was not received well by anybody. So that's kind of like a brief history of X-Wing in a nutshell. But the community is taking it forward, and so if that's something that you're interested in, if you're still interested in organized play, there are some options for you. Of course, there are pockets of people that are just playing these games under the rule sets that they originally came out in. There's still pockets of people that play 1.0, still pockets of people that play 2.0, still pockets of people that play 2.5. But within the 2.0 and 2.5 communities, there's some subgroups that have really done a lot. So I'm going to talk about X-Wing Legacy and X-Wing Alliance. So X-Wing Legacy is a group that has taken the 2.0 FFG version, and kind of they're keeping that going, and they're trying to do an awful lot with points. And both of these groups are doing things with points. X-Wing Alliance is a group that's taking the 2.5 rule set further. Now, these both are very, very passionate groups, and they're cooperating with each other, and they understand that there is a lot of people that prefer one version over the other, so they are able to both coexist and do their own separate things. They're each doing point adjustments. So if you're interested in balance changes and things like that, there are point adjustments that are happening with both of those. They're also doing organized play. There's tournaments that are happening. There's new content that's being worked on as well. So a lot of stuff for both of these. And I'm going to put some links down in the video description below if you want to jump into Discord, learn more, ask more information, all kinds of cool stuff like that. Those are two groups that are doing a lot of work to keep the community going, and that's really cool. Now, also, if you want to play online, Tabletop Simulator is a great way to do that. And again, a lot of these groups will use Tabletop Simulator as ways to connect people and to get casual games going, because again, one of the simple facts of the matter is when a game stops becoming supported and stops seeing new product in stores, in-store play will diminish over time. That's one of those things that you can keep it going, but it becomes harder and harder to keep it going, and it becomes easier and easier to fall back onto Tabletop Simulator. Now, personally, I don't use Tabletop Simulator as much. I use something called Fly Casual, which is the top right graphic there. Fly Casual is kind of a hybrid. It's a whole separate kind of rule set on its own, where it's primarily, it's like 2.5 under, it's like a 2.5, 2.0 hybrid, right? It doesn't use the scenarios and the from X-Wing 2.5, but it does use like the points structure and like the roll for, roll after, or the road system, I should say. So like that whole thing happens, roll after dials, right? And so it's a weird kind of hybrid situation, but it still feels like a straight up dogfight. So a little bit more like, plays a little bit more like X-Wing 2.0, and it kind of does a little bit to capture some of that 1.0 feel for me, and it plays against a completely automated opponent. So if you're just a single player looking to kind of recapture some of the magic, X-Wing Legacy, X-Wing Alliance, those can do it, but Tabletop Simulator could connect you with other players, or if you're a solo player like me, you can check out Fly Casual. Again, I'll have some links down in the video description below. But what if that's not for you? Maybe I haven't convinced you. Maybe you're said, you know what, I don't want to get into a community-supported game, because that's not for everybody. There are some options, for things that you can do now. Now, I'm going to tell you my favorite one first, because this one is a fantastic game, and it's definitely recaptures the early X-Wing 1.0 magic for me, and that's Snapship's Tactics. You've seen me do some sponsored content for them. I definitely do really enjoy the game. I love the fact that you're building the ships. It's kind of got a Lego toy brick kind of feel to it. Snapship's Tactics is also got a completely unique and really awesome energy management system that kind of says, hey, you know what, you can shoot all your guns and do all your cool stuff now, but then it's going to take you like 3 turns to recover. So maybe you want to balance, like do a little bit now and then wait, have a light turn, vent some of that heat, build up, restore some of that energy and get ready for another volley, or have a balanced approach where you're doing a little bit each turn and then waiting for that one kill shot where you're like, all right, now we're firing everything. There's a huge risk versus reward with that system. Really cool energy management, and it's got a kind of a simple enough rule set where it's still about just moving and shooting. It's a dogfight. It also has an AI component, which is a really cool thing. So again, definitely Snapship's Tactics, something you might want to check out. It is also a still supported game. This is a live game. They just had a new expansion come out. So a lot of stuff. They're working on more stuff too. They have a very active Discord as well. So I can't recommend Snapship's Tactics enough. It's another option. And this doesn't have to be a replacement for X-Wing, although it certainly can do that. But this can supplement. This can be an additional game because the feel is a little different, right? Like you typically have like 2 or 3 ships on a side, whereas X-Wing you could have between 2 and 8, right? Like ships are a little bit larger. The profile is a little bit larger, but still plays on a 3x3, and it has some... definitely has some differences from X-Wing, but it does kind of capture some of that dog fighting feel, and it's fun. It's just a plain fun game because you're building your ships and stuff. It's tactile. You're like, I want the wings to go on the top instead of on the side or whatever. You can do cool things like that, and it's super, super fun. Can't recommend that enough. But if that's not for you, there's other options as well. Again, there's always Star Trek Attack Wing. They have the Star Trek Alliance sort of campaign thing that's been going on. I'm not sure how much longer that one is going to be out for, though. That one may be nearing the end of its lifespan. I'm not 100% sure because WizKids, while they still have the Star Trek license, they are shifting into Star Trek Into the Unknown a little bit. I don't know if that's meant to kind of replace that one a little bit. Star Trek Into the Unknown, great game too, but that's more of like appealing to the Armada or the episodic, solving missions and stuff. And it's, while it has fleet combat, it's not the dogfighting game that X-Wing is. There's also Gaslands, which is more of a like using Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars, but has a little bit of that X-Wing feel if it were on the ground. As far as games that aren't really supported anymore, that you can still, possibly find, some legacy games out there that also might scratch that itch. If you like Games Workshop stuff, you have the Aeronautica Imperialis, which was kind of like the GW's answer to X-Wing, and then you have Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles, which was made by Ares Games and was using the Wings of War system, which X-Wing sort of evolved from in the first place. But that one could definitely scratch the sci-fi itch for you. Again, not a supported game anymore, but there's still a lot of starter boxes and stuff on Amazon. So if you subscribe, you enter to win that giveaway. That may be something that you can pick up a copy of it, because if nothing else, great miniatures, really great miniatures, really good, cool stuff. Great thing to have in your collection. For sure. So hopefully I've, hit all the major talking points and talked a little bit about X-Wing, if it's still right for you in 2025, and some options that you can use to inform your play decisions. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, love it. If you liked the video, share it with your friends and communities and people who might be looking to get back into X-Wing or similar games to kind of capture that magic. Hopefully this helps you out. I want to thank you all so very much for watching. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes, and always wash your socks.